Are you ready for your very own Mighty Monthly Muse? Let me hear ya. We are coming to you from Highland Park, New Jersey. Yeah, there's a pin in the map there. Yeah, I'm from the South. It's true. There's my grandmother's coffee cup. And my parents. And some acts that I have played with over the years. Fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen, because we are flying in to the Jim Alberti Theater, housed right here in the basement. Get ready, cuz here we go. Hello, everybody. Let me check to see if my microphone got muted there in that fly-in. Sometimes it does funny things when I'm flying the camera around. Hope you all doing okay. Thank you so much for joining me here on the first Sunday of the month. And the first Sunday is on the 1st, which means we're going to have a Friday the 13th this month. We usually do have a Friday the 13th a couple of times a year, sometimes 3 times a year, I think, if it happens in February. If my math is correct on that, it's always a big deal for me. I have a good friend, Jeannie Gallagher, out in Cincinnati, who throws a great party every Friday the 13th. It's always been a special day for me. So you guys ready for some poems? I want to start this off with a new one. It's a candidate for, just get this thing started right off the bat here at the Jim Alberti Circus. Jim Alberti Theater, that is a sign from the actual Alberti Flea Circus, which I'm going to hang on to. This poem is a candidate for the new album, and it's going to be called Meek Rising. It's going to be coming out at the Kerrville Folk Festival. And in theory, the Kerrville Folk Festival is going to happen unless the pandemic rages so much that we have to cancel. But I'm planning a whole tour going through Texas, through New Orleans, Pensacola, Tallahassee, going to all the COVID hotspots. I'm going to Athens, Georgia, Asheville, North Carolina, Nashville, Tennessee, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia a couple of times, and on up to New York City, which is basically where I am right now. I'm in Highland Park, New Jersey, which is about a 40-minute train ride to Penn Station from here. I'm going to get this started with a newer piece about my experience in the pandemic. Let me do a quick little set change here. I got my second vaccine shot on Monday, March 15th, which was exactly 1 year to the day in lockdown. The bulk of Kimberly and my relationship has been in lockdown. In fact, on the day that I accepted that COVID was real, I was still bouncing back and forth between Maryland and New Jersey. We were smart enough to move in together the next day. I cannot imagine going through this without her. On March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 2 days in, I decided to start reading a poem a day, streamed live on Facebook. It was novel at the time. Novel like the virus. I know it's not novel anymore. After a few months of seeing literally no one else, we got a dog, a 3-legged rescue named Drifter. He has lived almost his entire life in the pandemic. A Catahoula, Louisiana leopard dog, one of 3 breeds that can climb a tree. Sometimes when people ask me how he lost his leg, I often say, it was a tree climbing accident. I had to make a doggy door because he was a stray, and like me, he likes to run free. As you know, I have spent 35 years on the road, making a living as a performer. And well before this all started, I was going through a tough time and decided to take some time off. The first time in my life, I take some time off and then The pandemic. I still feel personally responsible for lockdown. I had just built a road case. My first real road case. A performer knows he's made it when he has a road case. It holds my mic stands, music stands, my patented reinforced black metal folding chair. Everything I need to do a show in one box. Hell, I could just now roll up into a club, one box in tow, crack the doors, and I had a whole dressing room. Poof! I was set, and now no shows to do. So the poem of the day just made sense. Well, a couple of days of doing the poem of the day, I looked down and noticed a red dish towel lying on the table. So I held it up in front of the camera, and suddenly I had a theater. The next day, I went into the shiny, unused road case and pulled out a couple of mic stands and used them to hold a curtain rod. Hell, I wasn't using them anyway. Next thing I knew, I was building a whole miniature theater. First, it was out of cardboard. Then, out of the wooden slats of an IKEA bed frame. The red velvet off a tattered performing jacket made the legs and main rag. Footlights made from Christmas tree bulbs. Toys from my childhood could be used for props. Anything around the house could be used as a prop. I borrowed some scenery from Kimberly's son, who has a model railroad. And soon, it was gonna be ropes and pulleys, backdrops made of paper. I turned the theater into a fly house. I could do anything. I made a snowdrop out of the mesh that you use to fix drywall with. I could make weather patterns, just like in the movies. Only my movies were being filmed on an iPhone. I could do other things creative. I found the leftovers from a birthday party, and a shoelace, and a cork, and I turned day into night while flying in a hot air balloon. I already had the costume. I have not played for an audience, live audience, since September of 2019. But during the pandemic, I have played over 200 shows to the thunderous silence of a camera lens. Drifter's even made an appearance on the show as a cast member. We don't let him go out at night, so we have to block the new doggy door. What do we use? That shiny, unused road case. It still sits by the door, waiting to be loaded into the van, so that together we can hit the thin highways of fat America. We can pack up our gear each night and set out to a new destination. Yes, along the thin highways of fat America. And I'll be happy because I know that I got my second vaccine shot 1 year to the day. And soon we can all be on the road. There you go. Showing off the Jim Alberti Theater a little bit in that piece. If you guys, I can actually see who's here, but you can unmute yourself and make a little noise. That always helps. Little applause. Maybe I'll make me an applause light one of these days. This next poem I'm
Chandler.
going to do. I love that. I haven't heard that in a year, over a year. I did my last show. God, I think it was August or September of 19. And my first show is going to be at the Kerrville Folk Festival. I hope I remember how to do it. And that will be with Paul Benoit. And he's a great guitar player and really excited about this record we're working on. And this next piece is going to be on it along with one of Paul's songs. I'm going to do another quick set change here and we'll jump right into it. The universe is simultaneously expanding and contracting. Each new measurement of the known universe tells a confusing story, and every confusing story creates more to be measured. Facts are no longer remembered, but stored in an off-brain facility. Our frontal lobes, once our mighty claws and talons, have been removed and stored in a fragile, handheld device, one that requires a monthly payment plan, without which we are no longer connected to the hive brain. Without this corporate account, we are banished from the new society, and the hive brain is massive, all-encompassing, growing, yet our own brain is shrinking because the universe is simultaneously expanding and contracting. Math skills gone in the 70s with handheld calculators. Multiplication tables gone the way of the dodo bird, Blockbuster Video, and whiteout. Mark Twain once said, "Never trust a man that can't figure out more than one way to autocorrect a word." It's true, I read it on the internet. It is also true that I was once arrested and stripped of my cell phone, so I could not make my one phone call because I did not know anyone's phone number. Global positioning satellites suck our sense of direction through a vacuum known as dependence. I can navigate anywhere and nowhere simultaneously. As a species, we hear more music than anyone else in human history, yet together we can barely sing happy birthday. Though I stand on the shoulders of giants, I am still an ant. The universe is simultaneously expanding and contracting. My body of knowledge is growing thinner. And just as a soap bubble expands, it gets larger. However, as it expands, its walls grow thinner. The universe is simultaneously expanding and contracting. I communicate with more people on a daily basis through social media than the entire cities my ancestors created. Yet I communicate with fewer and fewer upon every tweet. I ban who I want to from my universe and admit only those I desire. And I am creating a cult of clones, building Berlin walls, Great Walls of China, Mexican border walls of the soul. I can read more newspapers than anyone before me, but with every article I read, it is researched with the vigor of a fourth grade social studies student plagiarizing his textbook to turn in his assignment by the midterm deadline, all to be patted on the head by the denizens of Dunnyland. And on top of that, every article I read, the next is more narrowly tailored to me. The next, based on what I last read, the ads I see are tailored to me. I am drowning in a sea of me. Endless cycles of inward looking, Narcissus masturbating in a hall of mirrors in the vain attempt to inbreed with himself. Incestuous ignominy. But still, we all long to release. A smorgasbord of half-baked, half-researched, half-thought-through, fully self-referenced hypotheses, all in the urgent name. Get more likes, more followers, more retweets, more friends, so that for a second, for 1 second, we can feel that someone out there, somewhere, loves us.
Oh, that's sweet.
Hey, how you doing?
Holy shit.
Appreciate that. The universe is simultaneously expanding and contracting. You can tell our dollar store had got a sale going on for all kinds of globe balloons, and I just thought that I would go invest a couple of dollars in globe balloons. And I get all the money that I buy the globe balloons from contributions from viewers like you, and that's where you can send money to if you can, because that would help me buy more balloons. This month is the anniversary of something that was it affected me a great deal and affected a lot of people that I know, even much more than me. This month is the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. And as many of you know, I lived in New Orleans for a long time. I am not a Katrina survivor. I moved before the hurricane started, but well, my ex still has a house that's right there on the sliver by the river. It's one of the few places in the world that you go up to the river. You don't go down to the river, and being closer to the river is actually higher elevation. So those houses right along the river, one side is the river, the other side is the industrial canal. I could point out that house on a globe. And that my old neighborhood was pretty much completely destroyed in 2005 in the month of August. And I've written several poems about it, and I want to write one of the more recent ones. This was written shortly after the last time that I went down there, and what all I saw in the great city of New Orleans. Let me do a quick set change.
I've seen the greatest minds of my generation writing ad copy. And tonight, as I drown my sorrows in a beer ad, I think of Eliot, of Yeats, of Moliere, and what would they have made of it all? Or would they be today's poets? You know, the ones writing, "This bud's for you. I love you, man. Dilly dilly." You know, the classics. Or would they be writing the TV shows themselves? Would they write, "What biggest loser slouches down Project Runway waiting to become the next Tiger King?" Or would they be sitting at the right hand of God, the one where he holds the remote control? Because ever since that first moment when God said, "Let there be light," and he hit the universal remote, and that first white dot appeared on the giant surround sound television screen in the sky, and Adam and Eve sat down in their little fig leaf bathrobes on their little Fred Flintstone couches and watched God's first mini-series known as The Constellations. And they would fall asleep to stories on their TV, and the stories would be in their dreams. And those dreams will be passed on from generation to generation until today we are so twisted, we get Dancing with the Stars. The Stars were the longest running show in human history, longer than Bonanza, longer than The Simpsons, longer than one of Tucker Carlson's monologues. But then it got canceled by a new show called Small. So now we go to sleep watching shows like The Voice or American Idol, where the stories are about people becoming the stars that no longer exist. Our definition of star has become as distorted as our view of the downtown skyway in Los Angeles. Why do you think everyone in LA wants to become a star? It's because there are no stars. And people fall asleep watching that crap. Heavily medicated, probably involving a creepy butterfly that flies into your room as you play chess with Abraham Lincoln and a talking gopher and a mute guy and an antique diving bell until you wind up in a threesome with Drew Carey and Bob Barker and some mysterious stranger shouting, "Come on down!" And you're a smart person. You discover that Jiffy Pop popcorn and Johnson's floor wax retail for the same amount of money. And for noticing that innocuous anomaly, you were asked to spin a giant Catherine wheel, which looked like it may have belonged to Liberace himself, until you find yourself shouting, "The price is not right!" But even though the price is not right, we worship our entertainers, as long as they're famous. It's not like the days the bard with a wandering minstrel strolled from township to town, encampment to campfire, singing the stories of the village just over there, long before they were written down. Stories like the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran. And didn't all three of those warn us of worshiping at a false American Idol? American Idol is aptly titled, because when we watch that stuff, America is idle. And the famous, they'll do anything to stay famous. They'll go on talk shows to talk about how hard it is to be famous, how hard it is to be on the road. And they'll take jobs as insipid game show hosts or judges on contests that make no talents famous. I am here to say that fame is for sissies. It'd be easy to be on the road. If you're famous, try continuing to do it when your last gig was playing to 9 people at a coffee house in North Dakota. And this one is on a Facebook live stream. But it's not just the entertainers, it's everybody. Like, say you were the best widget maker in the world and no one notices. And the guy in the assembly line next to you gets the promotion. You have to find a way within yourself to keep being the best widget maker in the world. And the only way to do that is to keep being the best widget maker in the world and tell stories about being the best widget maker in the world to your kids.
Yeah, Chandler.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I got so excited about doing that poem that I introduced the wrong poem. And I just started off on wanting to do American Idol for some reason. It just sort of fell out of me that way. But I do want to do a piece about the fair city of New Orleans. And that last piece was called American Idol. And I did it with the song Fame on the Matadors album with Paul Benoit. Sparing no expense on the Wheel of Fortune there. But yes, I would like to do a piece about the fair city of New Orleans, because I think it is the greatest city in the United States. And I think that American culture would be very different if it weren't for the great city. And there are 3 places in the United States that call themselves the city: New York, San Francisco, and New Orleans. If you're anywhere near New Orleans, you're going to the city. Everybody knows that's where you're headed, and that's for a reason. It's also one of the few places, like if you got knocked over the head and dropped off anywhere in the United States, you probably wouldn't know where you were, because it looks like the United States of Generica, except for the city of New Orleans, and you know exactly where you were. Here we go. I am in love with a drunk. Oh, sure, she functions like most alcoholics do, but isn't every drunk on some level a functional alcoholic? I mean, one man's dysfunctional is another man's high achiever. Depends on your expectations, I suppose, but I don't think she's ever had too many of those. You see, it's both her beauty and her blemish, because she is easy. She is big easy. She has one of those jobs where people don't care too much if you show up late and a little bit tipsy. Odds are they're tipsy too. They give you extra sick days and don't care too much if you call in all raspy throated saying, "I got the flu," which really means I'm hungover. And it'd be one thing if she were willing to go through this life as a dull flame, dying at an early age of cirrhosis. Having her highest achievement be to take your order from behind a counter at a Popeyes in Metairie. But she is not that. She never was. In her day, she inspired millions. People still write songs about what a great singer she is, what great parties she throws, what a remarkable cook she is. And most of all, how good she looks at 4 in the morning, wearing nothing but She does throw a great party though, don't you think? She gets all dressed up. She wears a mask so you can't see the dark circles under her eyes. And in the right light, she is exquisite. She'll lure you in. She'll take advantage of you. And the next morning, when you wake up, you see her without the mask, makeup kissed away, beads lying in the gutter, being eaten by the rats. She is sad, but still somehow beautiful. You're right, you might remember a few years back, things got really bad for her. We had to have an intervention, had to bring in the cops, a lot of cops. And let me tell you, while she was lying there by the river at her most vulnerable, there's no way to soft pedal this. She was raped and then left for dead on the side of the river. And there are people in this country who said she was asking for it. She had it coming. And it took weeks, months, years for her to come out of that coma. And sure, some of her friends and loved ones sent her some money for a time, hoping to help out in her recovery. In fact, people came from all over the world to sit by her side for a time. But now, things are as bad as they ever were. And ain't nobody ever gonna give her another dime. But not that I blame her. She squandered most of what she was given, and what she didn't squander, she was swindled out of, because she has always been so giving for someone with such a propensity for trouble. And now, the worst of the worst show up on her doorsteps. She's living in a really rough neighborhood. I guess where else could she afford to live? And they use her till she's got nothing left to give. She's seen her best friends murdered, pistol whippings, and worse. And even as hardened a streetwalker as she is, even she is shell-shocked. Because now, the sweetest lady in the world is done turned mean. She's hard. She carries a gun. She has a habit. And I'm afraid she's gonna stay inside that bottle for a long time. Even though the cork has been removed, she's not coming out, because she simply has no way to grant your wish. And I'm afraid she'll stay in that bottle for a long time, singing, "Do you know what it is to miss your love?" But still, I am forever in love with a drum. Oh, the fair city of New Orleans. What a great place she is. Looking forward to getting back there. I'm going to be playing 2 dates in New Orleans right after Kerrville, assuming that the Delta variant doesn't cancel this tour. But here's to you, New Orleans. I'm going to go to a very, very different place than New Orleans on this next poem. I want to take you to something that I have not, really is the first time I ever did this, and I had to write a poem about it. But it's summertime, it's the first day of August, and Kimberly and I have been spending a fair amount of time down in Asbury Park, New Jersey, down on the shore. And it is a beautiful place down there. I'm a Southerner. I had sort of a Yankee bias, but I got to say, New Jersey just surprises me at every turn. How beautiful it is. It's called the Garden State for a reason. And we went down to beautiful Asbury Park, and I want to dedicate this poem to my good friend Martin Swinger, who passed about a week or so ago. He's an Asbury Park resident, and actually the only other person that I knew in Asbury Park. Because I've been here during lockdown, and I just haven't been going out and meeting anybody. So this one's for you, Martin. Today, I built my first sandcastle at the top of the tide line. It is magnificent. Small ships passing us by as we place small clamshells atop each turret, draping them with seaweed. Long, transparent, gelatinous sea bulbs crown the highest spires. And from the spirals winding down into her courtyard like a memory. Her sandy keep sits high, looking down upon the drawbridge, surrounded by an empty moat. And as the tide comes in, tiny waves flow into her channels, encircling her with water.
A small child, compelled by this beauty, runs out to the ocean's edge, bringing back buckets of water to pour them into the carved canals, drawing the seawater in, priming the pump like a siphon. Her name is June. It is late July. Soon the moat is full, and the castle is standing proud, the setting sun. Feathered flags unfurl. I sit back in my plastic beach chair throne, crack open a champagne of beers, and overlook my kingdom. Yet the tide cares not for my reign. My kingdom is under siege. The ramparts begin to crumble. The drawbridge floats away and resumes its former life as a piece of driftwood. Walls fade away, patiently molded with Tupperware pots and a small child's spade, begin to collapse, reclaimed. The persistent tide now pushes against the walls of the keep, while a soft stew of salty seaweed fingers the advancing front. We cry at its impermanence, but tears do not help. For one by one, her grand pillars are lost. Planted with flags of seagull feathers, they timber back into the weedy brine, reclaimed. Then at last, the final tower tips. But still, one last proud feather stands erect, clinging defiant against the sea, until it too finally is engulfed and floats away, reclaimed. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow we will never see, leaving us only today and the sea and the sand and the tide and her eternal devotion to the pull of the moon and the look of wonder in a small child's eye named June in late July.
There you go, Sandcastles, some sea monkeys for Martin Swinger. He was a great folk singer and a truly generous soul. You were a great man. I'm glad you were in my life, Martin. You made the world a better place. Got the sea monkey castle at the dollar store. Thought it just goes with the sea monkeys. Hey, does that work? Almost. You know, my love of things like miniature and goofy things like the sea monkeys and Captain Crunch treasure chests and people who do weird things for a living, like my friend Tom the Bubble Man, who made a living for over 40 years and still does, blowing bubbles. It's a weird road to hoe, and I want to do a poem about how I feel about that. I recorded this as a song with Katie Curtis a million years ago, and the poem was written by me and Phil Rockstro, and it has nothing to do with sea monkeys except a little love of its little flavoring in there, so I'll remove them from the set. This was always a really important poem for me, so I hope you enjoy it. Let me do a quick little set change here.
Let them curse our kaleidoscope hearts, and we'll snicker through pastel heaven and fold our defeats into a defiant hat and search for shoes to match. And we could shoplift in the finest of thrift stores and never ask for a pardon, for the zipper of the seersucker sky is open and God loves us so much he has a heart on. And the thugs of virtue and the riot squad will be after us for this. And I always felt there was no one that I could talk about this with. I fell in love with you yesterday. In the bank, we were standing in line. That teller must have thought that I had a gun, but I was just depositing a roll of dimes. But she threw her hands up in the air, screamed, and then hit the floor, and everyone else did the same, though neither one of us knew what for. And as we lie there in the silence, unsure if there was a crime. You smiled and said you understood when I said, I feel like this all the time. And I'm glad to see that you understand why my head's about to split. And I always felt there was no one that I could talk about this with. Before I knew that you felt this way, I had lived a quiet life, sleeping beneath a manhole cover, unsure of my left from my right. And in that basement workshop, drawing lines and smoking cigarettes, I built you an alternative universe, but I haven't got the bugs worked out yet. Because every time I put the finishing touches on the black holes, I feel that I am done, but then time starts moving backwards and I lose my opposable thumbs. And so you see, I had no choice. I simply had to quit. And I always felt there was no one that I could talk about this with. And I tell you this in the strictest of confidence, for I trust that we're both friends. I went and sat in the laundromat and I confessed all of my sins to an understanding washer and dryer. And when the rinse cycle fell, I was absolved and a nasty gravy stain was removed as well. And an old man's rayon shirt cried out, how did it come to this? And I always felt there was no one that I could talk about this with. You too heard the rooster crow at the brink of kingdom come, but you rolled over and mashed the snooze button and we slept through Armageddon. But you know, Armageddon might be proved to be a good night for you and I to go out. We could have an intimate evening. We're sure to avoid the crowd. Because if everyone is raptured up to heaven, we'll get good seats in the theater, they say. It's like when you don't like football and it's Super Bowl Sunday. But we'll be on call for the next apocalypse. But I think I'm going to call in sick. And I always felt there was no one that I could talk about this with.
Oh, thank you so much. No one I could talk about this with. It was written in the last century, as was this one I'm going to close out with. Thank y'all so much for gathering around, and thanks to the Tim Mason and the 830 Club. Thanks to Shannon and to Jenna and of course Brian Dozer. Thank you so much, Brian, for coming through on this. And also, I want to send a thanks out to Kimberly Siever for helping me out with this show and putting up with this show happening here in Highland Park, New Jersey. It means a lot to me, Kimberly. I want to close out with this one, and we'll come back. And I hope you can hang around for the after party. I'll come back, and I would love to hang out and chat for a minute. So here we go. This is an oldie but a goodie. And I got a warning here. I am trying to get the theater so that it's actually on wheels, so that I can set up a set over there and set up a set over there, and I can just turn it. And I'm getting it so that I can do that. The hard part is the cables. I got to figure out a way to I got to hire a grip to move the cables with it when the theater. But it could happen. It's going to happen soon. Working on it. Anyway, that's I think you're not supposed to show the smoke and mirrors, but I have good time doing that. Here we go with an oldie but a goodie. I hope you like it as much as I've enjoyed doing this piece over the years. I'm going to do a quick little set change.
Ascending skyward in a glass elevator whose path through the clouds runs along the outside of a cathedral of corporate capitalism. Hymns of devotional music filled the vessel. Simon and Garfunkel, Huey Lewis, Elvis Presley, And from that vantage point, the city was luminous beneath me. All those lights, electric lights, neon lights, fluorescent lights that beaded into a mosaic of votive candles and then transformed into an ever-increasing expanse of costume jewelry, and it was glorious. It was the glorious glinting of the jewel-studded celestial jumpsuits of 10,000 Elvis imitator angels doing a command performance for God. As I reached the 70 or 75th floor, I was so close to God, I could actually hear him count his money. And I wondered how this glass elevator could ever be a chariot coming forth to carry me home when the only home I've known is the Home Shopping Network. Perhaps that's why the epiphany arrived with the crystalline clarity of a world of zirconium diamonds resplendently reflecting 1,000 fluorescent suns. You see, we are a lot like Elvis. Now, don't get me wrong here. Elvis in the 70s, you know, puffy and bloated, wheezing our way through our set, heaving our way across the world stage. The fans still screamed more, failing to notice any decline. The world wants what we have, but America has left the building. America died like Elvis, retching pharmaceutical cocktails into the toilet. Our culture died, but its imitator is sporadically spotted in Burger Kings and Walmarts. First, it was in Gallup, New Mexico, but then in the Kentucky Fried Chicken adjacent to the Eiffel Tower, and in the 7-Eleven reflected in the pools outside the Taj Mahal. Our culture is sequined across the global landscape. All those lights, electric lights, neon lights, fluorescent lights, visible even from space. Our globe shines from space like one of Elvis's Las Vegas costumes, but no one sees the dying man beneath the jeweled jumpsuit. The gods who once dwelled in nature now dwell in culture. And even our culture of excess must have a God. And I guess glittering Elvis is the God of it all. He rises from the ashes everywhere, and every flashing or blinking running light, and every strobing fluorescent tube light, glimpsed in every glowing sign atop every home delivery pizza truck on earth. We await the Elvis Pentecost when it will rain triple cheeseburgers, fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches, and percolated from heaven. Our Garden Gate communities are our own personal Graceland. And behind its walls, we die in isolation and excess. The land and the king are one. He is the gleaming God of millennium's end. Did we dream Elvis? Or did Elvis dream us? Dreaming.
Woo!
Yeah.
Hello. Glad you liked that. Thank you for the applause. It means a lot. It's like the Times Square ball dropping. That was the last number of the evening. I'd like to thank you guys for gathering around. It really, really means a lot. We do this the first Sunday of every month, and the next one's going to be on September the 5th. And then I believe October and November, I will be off trying to put the winter solstice show together. It'll also be out on tour. We may do something from the road. We may run some reruns. I'm not sure how that's going to work. So make sure you catch next month, September the 5th, and every Sunday at 9 o'clock. I do the poem of the day, the poem of the week. I do one poem once a week. And at some point, the time may change to Tuesday nights. But that's what's going on with me. I'm looking forward to getting out on the road if we possibly can. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. And also, if you have any thoughts of some places that we could play on the way from Kerrville, Texas to Florida and up to Georgia, all the way back up to New York City is the route that we're going to be taking. But in the meantime, I will join you guys for the after party because I'd love to chat for a minute.
Bravo, Chandler.
Right, and say goodbye to Facebook.
Goodbye, Facebook.